when to say no, and more importantly, how. So I'm George Pino with Commercial Real Estate International, and a lot of real estate agents, especially those that are starting off that are new, have a very hard time telling their clients no. Now, every real estate agent realizes that, certain things you can't say, such as, giving away your fiduciaries, the price, what the minimum price that they would accept or things like that. You have to really look out for that. But a lot of times, your clients want you to go above and beyond what you want to do. And that can actually lead you into some very serious legal issues. So, and for either a new agent not wanting to look like they don't know what they're talking about, or there's a lot of times they'll just say yes and they'll go forward and do it. So there are certain times that you really need to draw a line in the sand and say no. You can do it politely and in a way that your client can understand why you're saying no. Don't just say no, I don't do that. That's not customer service. We have to remember that we're in the customer service business. But a lot of times, for instance, I'll have a client that'll ask me to review the lease. So my typical response is, I am happy to review the lease for the deal terms that we have agreed upon to make sure they're in the lease. But I cannot advise you on any legal language or the repercussion of any of the legalese or language. So if you want me to change some of those terms or legal terminology or language, I can't do that because two things. One, I'm violating my DRE or Department of Real Estate license. I'm practicing law without a license, which can also get me in trouble with the Bar Association of your state. And so, the client needs to understand that. Could I potentially do it? Possibly. Am I the best person for it? No, an attorney is the best person to review a lease and give legal advice. Same goes for when it comes to picking a lender or setting up things. A lot of times clients will ask for recommendations, and it's great to give recommendations because these are people that that have performed and can do a good job for your client. But you don't want to just pick one. Typically speaking, what I do is I try and give at least 3 recommendations and explain. This is a client or this is a lender I've worked with. They're really good, however, they're slow or they have better rates. This is another lender I've worked with. They're very aggressive, but he gets the job done. And so give them a little bit of insight into who the lenders are, what they do, and what type of business they do, and then let them choose. You can help coordinate, but let them choose who they're going to use. Same goes for any other third-party vendors, such as phase 1 contractors, environmental contractors, or surveyors, things like that. Let them choose. The next thing that you want to take a look at is, a client sometimes may ask you to do something to either hide something. Don't say anything about that leak that you just noticed because it was raining. You didn't see it before. This is where you have to be upfront because the client can also get in trouble now. If they're aware of any material defect or material issue that could affect the purchase of the property has to be disclosed. So if you don't disclose it, you could be in trouble, but more importantly, your client could also be in trouble, and you're supposed to look out for their best interests. You have to explain that to them. So if a client comes to you and says, don't tell them this, don't see this, so if it's a material issue, I have to tell them, and so do you legally. Otherwise, you could be held liable even after the sale, or even after the lease is signed. There might be reasons for them to cancel the lease. So these are things that you want to be aware of. You just don't say, yes and agree to the client what they want to do. We're not necessarily following orders, so to speak. We are helping and assisting our clients. So lastly, when you're looking at the client that's coming in asking for a request, a lot of times the biggest one, and it's probably the most minor of all the issues, is when a client comes and asks you something and you're afraid to say, no, I don't know. And that can get you in a lot of trouble and open a big can of worms for you. So, the best answer, and even to this day, after 30 years of experience, every now and then I run into something that I don't know. And I have no problem saying, I don't know. but let me find out for you. And then make sure you follow up and find out for them. But don't tell them something assuming or whatnot, like, oh yes, I believe that's the case, or I think so, or whatever. Because certain states, under DRE guidelines, if an agent says something without a qualifier, saying that, you should investigate further, or per another, I heard this from XYZ, or from the report it says this, then it's deemed that that agent is guaranteeing it. Literal words in some states. You're guaranteeing the statement. So you could be held legally liable for something that you didn't know, but you didn't want to look like you didn't know. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, let me find out about it. So understand, when you're working for your client, you have to have their best interests in mind. So to have their best interests in mind is not just agreeing to them. Nobody wants to work with a yes man. Well, some people may, but nobody really wants to work with a yes man. What you want to do, though, is set it up so that you are giving them advice, telling them what you believe, qualifying it, advising them if they need to do further investigations, and letting them know if it's something that this is not what you do, that it should be done by another professional, whether it's a CPA, an attorney, an environmental specialist, a zoning specialist, a use specialist. Those are all types of specialists that they can hire that are above what we typically would do in real estate. So keep that in mind, and then that's the way that you can give the best service to your clients. Any questions?